Hi there, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Cloud-Based Mayhem. This is your host, Gavin McClurg. Got a great show today for you with Michael Witschi, who I met walking down off. Well, actually, I trained with him before the 2015 X-Alps, but he was in the 2015 race, and he and I had a really cool talk on the way down from Ashow, day 2, in a rainstorm with Aaron Duragati and a few others, and I've always really appreciated that talk and wanted to reach back out to him because he's been awfully active lately. He's one of the coaches for the X-Alps Academy, and he was the brainchild and the event organizer and operates the EigerTour, which has been a very successful 4-day race across the Bernese Oberalps in the Interlaken zone and Eiger zone for the last few years. It's been a really awesome race, which we hope to get over to this year after the X-Alps. And he's a dad. He's one of the most task-winning pilots in the World Cup in history. He might have won more than anybody else. I don't have that data to back it up. I did search for it, but fascinating individual, very successful businessman and engineer, and incredible pilot. And it was fun to share some time with him in the 2015 race, and it was really fun to reach back out and talk to him about all things flying in this show. I think you're really going to enjoy it. We cover a lot of ground, including the X-Alps and what's going on with the X-Alps Academy and what he's teaching and learning there. Today's top of the show tip, I'm going to make a shot at answering this one, although I'm certainly no expert in this, but it actually comes from Nick Hawks. He sent me a text a couple weeks ago that said, when, if ever, would you use a single skin wing? Do you think of them as a viable option for anything beyond getting in a workout and quick flight? So certainly I do use them a lot for workouts and quick flights, but definitely I would use them for alpine stuff as a descent tool. I know, I've heard stories at least, and Fabian Blanco goes into single surface wings a lot more in his show if you want to hear more about single surface wings, but they have come a long way. They are great little tools. Like I said, I've heard of people doing it in the Alps and flying proper XC, but I can't really imagine doing that on them. I just don't feel very secure. They don't have a ton of bar performance. They don't have great glides. They are insanely easy to launch, and once you get used to them land, they don't have the kind of the same brake authority, obviously, that a typical wing does, just because they don't have the energy. But once you kind of get that smooth, then they work great for that. But they're just so light and so fun, but I never feel that secure on them when it's really thermic and a little bit wild. That always makes me really nervous. So that may just be lack of experience on them. So I'm definitely no expert on this, but personally, I don't like using them for any kind of real flying. I like to use them as a descent tool and as a fun play thing. They're great to use ground handling because there's nothing to them. So you can really use them in a ton of wind. So that's how I approach it. One thing I think that maybe a lot of people are doing that they should change is make sure you fly them with a reserve. Typically we're flying these things with bikini harnesses, and we don't have any real padding and safety, so you certainly don't want to crash them. That's why I don't really like using them in any kind of real conditions, because I just feel pretty naked up there. But definitely, they're a wing. You definitely don't treat them so much like a speed wing when you're right on the ground. You need to have a reserve. So I fly with my Nivic Roamer 2 harness, which is a nice airbag. So it's got some really nice passive safety, and then a reserve. And I think that's probably a good idea. It adds very little weight, adds another kilo. So that's my thoughts on the single surface. Enjoy the show with Michael Witschi. Michael, it's good to see your face, bud. You haven't aged a day. The last time I saw you, we were hiking down off. It was day 2 of the 2015 X-Alps, and we were hiking down off the Camp and Vond. in a horrible storm, and I never saw you again. So it's good to see you.
Yeah, Gavin, I'm very happy to see you as well, and I've followed you all those years, on social media, and I'm very proud of your that I met you there. You're the only American that saw Monaco, right, in this race.
Yeah, yeah.
I think so.
That day too, you got out ahead of me, and I had a bad day. It just nothing lined up for me that day, and it took me quite a few days to catch up with you. I think I finally caught you on day 8, going into the Matterhorn, and then we got down to Monaco, and Bruce didn't like Monaco so much that we had to leave immediately. So
Oh,
I didn't
really?
go to the party. Oh man, he hated it, and my feet were just, oh man, I was destroyed. It was a combo of Bruce really wanting to get out of Monaco, and then the van rental I had screwed up, and we had to get it back to Germany, back to Munich, like the day of the party. I mean, literally. So
All
we
right.
we had that night in Monaco when I got in, whenever that was, day 10, and the next morning drove all day and all night to get the van back to Munich and crashed it on the way back. So yeah, it kept being
Should have
eventful even
stayed.
after the
At
race.
the end. So
But
you
hey,
missed the drunk people sneaking into my van and sleeping next to me that night. I had to kick out. I think there were some Czech pilots that sneaked
oh
in
man,
drunk into my bus.
I was in so much pain that first night. I mean, literally, I couldn't walk. The next morning, Bruce had to carry me to the bathroom, and it looked like somebody had beaten on my feet with hammers. And so that first night that we were sitting around, I think Paul was there, and Aaron, and a few others. I think Kriegel had like gone home and then was going to come back to the party or something. He wasn't around, but
Yeah, he
because he
was
had
in
finished a couple days
Switzerland at that
before.
time.
Yeah, yeah. But so we started drinking, and my feet hurt so much, and Bruce was an anesthesiologist, so he had a bunch of oxycodone on him. So I took like 3 oxycodone and had about 6 beverages, and whoa, I was a happy man that night. I was just bouncing off the proverbial walls. But hey, where I thought would be really fun to start is, because otherwise we're going to be talking about the X-Alps and nobody listening is going to know what we're talking about. But you threw your reserve. I can't remember. It was like day 5 or day 6 in the race, coming into Switzerland, right? And
Yeah.
that was, I think, the same day that they kind of covered this up well, I don't know if they covered it up, but I didn't realize that Toma crashed so badly. I mean, it sounded like he really should have died. He kind of had his face torn off, and we were battling a lot of wind in that, pretty much the entire race except day 1. We were just battling the winds. Tell me about your reserve. I thought it was just, you just landed in a lake, was no big deal, but we just before we started there, you said it was actually pretty dramatic. You had a wife at home who was pregnant, and yeah, it sounded scary.
Yeah, so it was a bit scary. You know, one of my problems during the race was that I couldn't really sleep because I hate sleeping with high temperatures. And
Mm.
normally I went to hotels. I was one of the few pilots who went to hotels. I didn't sleep in my van if ever possible. And even those hotels in Italy and in Germany, they wouldn't have aircon.
Oh.
So I was actually very tired, but with open eyes all night. So I think that accumulated. And that last day, I told my guys, this night I want to pay in Swiss francs again. I don't like euros. I want to be back in Switzerland. So we started the last flight. It was Stefan Gruber and me, and we flew into Switzerland. And at some point, we noticed we were very high, 3,000 something meters. And some point, we started to feel the föhn. That's that effect. I don't know if you have this in the States. We have it
Not,
from north to south. You have it
yeah.
west, east. I don't know.
We do in a sense, but we don't. No one ever talks about it. I think we get it more than we don't even really know what it is. But it's not dramatic. You don't get the real ferny dumping effect like you do in Europe. Where you have these massive pressure gradients. We just deal with a lot of wind.
So yeah, this is maybe it's one of the dangerous things that can happen. But in the X-Alps, it's clear that you will fly. It's clear, and it's also the fun has this property that the lower, the stronger. So if you're high, you start to feel a little bit, face wind, and then we start to accelerate. And suddenly we were standing in this Boschiavo, it's called, this village, and we were, full accelerated and not advancing anymore. And then I got this collapse, and which normally I think I would have opened. This was an easy glider, actually, GTO2, the one that I had, but I was just too tired, and I waited maybe 3 seconds to look up, and then I was already big cravat going down. And I thought, now it's time to throw the reserve. I was tired. I was not so high. So I threw it, and then, of course, with this wind, 40 to 50 kilometers an hour, it blew me. And I was scared to face a building, hit the building. But then I realized I was going to land in the water. How high are chances to land on a rescue in a cold mountain lake? And and very, very fortunately, I had trained this before. I don't know why I trained it. I went over Lake Brienz. I threw my reserve. I came down. I started to avoid that pendulum situation where you have the parachute on one side and the glider on the other side. So I knew exactly how to deal it, to bring in the normal glider. And then I also, since my harness had no buckles, I knew how to get out. So 5 meters above the water, I get out of my shoulder straps and stuff. And then I dive in and I get out immediately. I'm out of my harness. So because I had it trained, luckily.
That was smart.
So I didn't tangle up with the lines, which is normally the most dangerous thing in those lakes when you land there. But also then, I don't know, my brain was maybe malfunctioning. First I tried to save my stuff, my cell phone in the air, and suddenly I realized this is, now these things are lost. I have to look after my life. So I let go everything and start to swim with all my clothes on, which now I have discussed a lot. If you land in cold water, should you be naked or not? I mean, naked in underwear, however. And I think I don't know. I think it's worth to keep the clothes on. But we had a Swiss pilot dying in the Atlantic Ocean in Spain last year because it was too cold. And the guy who was with him until the very last moment, he told me that he was not sure if it was a good idea. But anyway, so I was swimming with full everything on and against the wind. I don't know why. Because I was in the middle of this lake. And I measured it. It's half a kilometer. It's not that far. And I swam, and suddenly, I start to feel my energy going down. And then that's where my daughter comes into the story, because my wife was 6 months pregnant, and I thought, now you have to swim. It can't be that your daughter doesn't get to know you. And this gave me the energy to swim to the shore. And once arrived there was an ambulance, there was the police. They gave me some wool blankets, and I was shaking for an hour from the cold. And then shortly after, there was Tarkin Cooper calling me. That's the only moment that I was interesting to the X-Alps.
Yeah, those of us who aren't Kriegel don't get a whole lot of attention.
Normally you have to be in the front or in the very back,
That's right.
But if you're in the middle, and if you're like the second Swiss or the third Swiss, then you're not of a big interest.
Yeah, you're an after-end, man. You're an afterthought.
But anyway, so the one thing that just, pops out of my mouth is what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Nice.
Easy said, but then I tell you until that day, I was always amongst the 5 first pilots, I think. And from the very next day on, I started to do one mistake after the other. And some were also because of fear, flying over this Bernina glacier. And I already saw myself, hanging in one of those crevasses with my parachute. And I flew shit from that moment on. So suddenly my strength would have been flying, because I was not a physical athlete. I've been always how you say this, World Cup pilot.
Yeah, pilot.
Suddenly my strength was gone, and walking became my new strength. And I think I walked like 150 kilometers more than Kriegel to get to Monaco that year. But it was really because I did many mistakes after that.
But man, you did it. I mean, I think that, I've thought about this a lot since that race. And when you went in, Toma had to retire, obviously, because he was so mangled. And, Tom Dorlado had to get helicoptered out. Michael Gebhardt, that same day, I think that you threw your reserve, just said, enough's enough. I mean, we were dealing with a lot of wind, which I think, we haven't really experienced in the last couple. And, I just wonder if I could even do that now. And I've thought about you a lot, because you get in this headspace. People are always asking, how do you deal with the intensity of the conditions? Because they can often be pretty rotten. And wouldn't you say, I mean, everybody I've talked to that competes in the race, we get in this headspace almost like day one, that you've just got it. You're confident. It doesn't matter what the weather throws at you. You can deal with it. You're optimistic and confident. It's that combination. Maybe you're in flow, and that, that Thomas Thurlow talks about a lot. But when you have something like what you have through, you're obviously thrown way out of that. Your gear's torched. All your instruments are shot. You've had this kind of near death experience. Man, must have been hard to have kept going.
Actually, for me, it was very clear that I would go on. I never, even though my family, they said, "Are you sure you want to go on? Maybe this is a sign." And I'm very stubborn. I said, "No, this is not a sign. I'm going on, and I don't regret it." And it was never in question. But yes, as I told you before, from that moment on, I was a little bit scared in the air.
How long did that take to resolve? Was it done by the end of the race?
Not too long. I think in half a year I was back in the game.
Okay.
I was very conscious that it was the mixture between my being very tired. In a normal day, I would not have thrown the reserve. I would just have kept my glider open. So I knew it was a very special situation, and it was the only reserve in 22 years until now that I had to throw, and I hope it will stay the only one. So I knew this in my head. This was clear, it was not a normal situation. That's why afterwards, when flying, I was not really scared that much.
Was the X-Alps your first hike and fly comp?
No. I did two comps before, because before that I had no idea. I just, Kriegel and me, we were at the Swiss Championships from normal competition, and I just had lost like 16 kilos because I was a heavy guy, and even Kriegel was a heavy guy before, because we wanted to have the big gliders. I was 97 kilos and he was 92 one day. So then I lost the weight, and he had already lost it way before, because he was doing this X-Alps. And I said, Kriegel, what do you think? I would like the idea of this race going always forward, not triangles and forth and back. We call that the Mickey Mouse, no Mickey Mouse game, just go. And then he said, yeah, if you really want it, you can do that. And then I started to train, and then he told me to do some preliminary competitions, and it was very useful to me, because I was always taking off on very nice green grassy hills, and everything was nice, and suddenly I had to take off in rocky fields on snow. So I had those 2 years to get a little bit prepared with hike and fly.
Yeah, you and we spent a little bit of time in Zermatt before the race. That's where we met, and we got to do a little bit of training together. I mean, you're being a little humble. You're saying, that your strength really wasn't on the ground, but you were fit. I mean, you looked fit, certainly, and you certainly could move on the ground. Compare your training to the 2015 race to what you're teaching now in the X-Alps Academy. How does it look different, if at all?
So what we teach is basically, especially if we think about X-Alps, because we have a lot of also very fast races in Switzerland, but let's stick to the X-Alps, which is a long race. So we say you don't have to be fit, you have to be solid,
Yep.
which means, doesn't matter if you get 10 minutes later on the takeoff, but you have to resist 10 days of walking and of hiking up, and
you have to be durable.
And that, durable, that's the right word. So that's what we teach our guys, and of course then we train also them to be very fit. So we do interval trainings. I always trained my muscles, like gym.
In the gym,
but a lot of outdoor people, they would say gym is stupid and I don't go to the gym. And I think that conscious has grown, that also the outdoor people know that if they want to get better, they have to go twice or once a week at least to train their muscles to strength and not only to endurance, just to be solid. But I always had done this, so that was one thing that maybe others didn't do at the time. And I'm pretty heavy, so I was not the guy to do a 100-meter record. But on the other hand, I trained walking 12 hours without really stopping, and that helped me the very last night, that I knew that I had to walk 85 kilometers in a row without stopping. So that was, and then as an entrepreneur, I had little time to actually train, much less than other people. So I had 1 day per week, and I had the weekend. And in the evenings I was running, but that was about it.
What was your confidence level going into it? Because we were both rookies in 2015, and I literally just had no idea if I even belonged there. I felt, when I saw everybody in Fuchsal that first week, I thought, okay, well, at least physically I've prepared. It just seemed like, okay, well, I think physically I'm going to be okay. But I don't know. I had a lot of anxiety going into the race. The prologue really helped, even though I don't think anybody took that very seriously. Doing well in the prologue kind of was like, oh, maybe I can do this, but man, I just didn't know. Were you confident going in because of their time with Kriegel or your comp background, or what was that like for you?
Yeah, maybe flying wise, I was confident. I knew that I could keep up. I mean, I saw Kriegel. We fly a lot together, so I know he's better and how much he's better. So I knew exactly where I was flying wise. But of course, the physical thing was completely new. And then the long, sleeping in hotels and in the van and all that stuff, that was completely new. So I had no idea how I would perform in that way. And there was one thing also that I was confident, is that I can let go the others. If they, some people, they're pretty trained and fit, but then they go too fast, and then the third day they're dead.
Ah, yeah,
and
right.
if
Pacing
they were
yourself.
Exactly. So if they were mentally stronger, they could have beaten me twice, but since they pulled the night past, they did this and that, and they got so stressed that one day they were not amongst the first 10, or I don't know. But the race was so long, and that's something that I've learned, take it easy, resist 10 days. Everything that I did had to be able to be doing during 10 days. And that was a certain confidence, I think,
Yeah, and the sleep thing, I sympathize with you with that one. In this last race in 2019, it was really, 2018 went well because we had the one really good day, and that that kind of pole vaulted me into a position that I could get to Monaco, because it was certainly not looking like it was going to happen before that day. But 2019 was really, I felt like when our team really hit its stride and things were going well. And I was flying better than I ever had. And then I had one night, getting to Titlis, actually the night to Titlis. So it was a huge vertical day the day before, and then a monster day on Titlis, like everybody had, other than Kriegel, who top landed up there. But physically, I still felt pretty good. I mean, I was pretty wiped out, but I still felt pretty good. But that night, I couldn't sleep. I just laid there all night, and then the next day, I felt physically pretty well, but I couldn't put a sentence together. My team could tell, like, geez, he's not really there, and I just fell apart. Just totally fell apart. I couldn't fly, and nothing made sense, and I was forgetful, and boy, it just really takes, so like you said, you've got to be able to keep that going for 12 days.
Yeah. I think the lack of sleep is, for me, was like the worst thing. And there were 3 reasons that I wanted to go again to the X-Alps, and one was I have to learn how to sleep well. The second one was our communication. I wanted to, if I went the second time, I wanted to bring a radio because the cell phones, they don't work sometimes.
Mm.
And the third one was, having a better glider, one that I can really, because my one was all good unless I really accelerated, and then it got, unstable.
Mm.
So I wanted to have a glider where I can blindly trust even full speed.
I'm surprised. That was actually my next question. Why haven't you done it again? Because I'm older than you by a lot.
Yeah, it's not the age. I think at that time, when I survived, I had 3 close shaves in my X-Alps. The one was in Lermos. There was already Südföhn, the föhn coming from the south, and I nearly hit a roof. But then it went all well. I had nothing, but it was close, a big collapse.
That was just coming into the LZ?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, into the turn point.
To sign the board.
Yeah.
And then after, when we crossed to this Ötztal, holy shit, that was so strong conditions. I thought my glider was torn apart. And then there was the lake. And then the third one, I remember your video, was in southern France, and you flew through it. I saw you on the video with tears below your glasses.
Yeah.
And in the same place, I thought, it's over. It's over. I was pulled to all the directions with, I don't know which speed, down and up, and said, holy shit, now this is it.
Yeah.
And then I
really thought I was dead there. I hadn't given up, but I was like, there's no fucking way I'm going to get out of this. I'm dead. I'm just dead. That was really,
so I felt
that was kind of the time of the race
similar.
where I thought, this is too much. What am I doing?
Yeah. So, these 3 close shaves, then I said, hey, and now you have 2 kids, and it's not good to go again. So this was one reason. And the second, of course, was my company, because, I knew if I was going again, I would have to train more. But I don't want to sell my company just to go to an X-Alps. So that's why probably I haven't done it. Sometimes I feel, why not? But yeah, I would have to give away the company probably to be really prepared.
But you're supporting Yale in this one, correct?
Yes,
I never say her name right. Is that
Yael?
Yael, yeah. So, that's kind of the same thing, man. That's a big commitment.
Yeah, but it's not the same, First of all, I can not fly if I feel it's too dangerous.
Sure,
I can go and land, and she can, but she shouldn't probably, or sometimes she should, but normally she should fly through. So that's already a big difference. It's not the same, And then we should be able to sleep better. We will see if that works. We have a camping car with a big AC. So that's my condition to come with you. Camping car with AC. And then it's a promise I gave her, and that was in 2013 when we first 14 when we first started to think about this idea. And then I told her, if you help me, I will help you one day.
Very
so
cool.
Now the last 2 times she wanted to go, but she had some physical problems.
Yep.
And now she's ready. And I said, I keep my word.
Yeah, I had her on the podcast a while back. That landing on a moving car sounded pretty adventurous. She was doing some acro and Verbier, I think. And so, well, I'm glad she's healthy. And wow, this is exciting. I think Lori and Yael, and they're going to put up a good fight. I think they're both really strong pilots and clearly training hard. And it's going to be awesome to watch. That could be one. I mean, this obviously, but the big thing that has changed since our time in 2015, I remember at one point in the race, Hansa and I launched together, and that was Hansa's 5th and his last. So he had done it since 2007. And he made a comment. He said, Gavin, everything's going right in this race. I'm going as fast as I've ever gone. And I'm in whatever we were in at the point, 16th or 15th or something. He said, I just can't believe how fast this race is getting. And since 2015, it's almost like it's another 20% or something. It's crazy how fast it's going. It's just, it is really remarkable. I mean, I felt like in 2015, you could make big mistakes and still be in it. And I mean, I certainly made a ton in that race, and you could you could crawl back. And I feel like now it's, man, in 2017, I made a mistake early, and that was kind of it. Everybody's moving so much faster.
Yeah, that's also what my friends tell me. The level is constantly rising.
Yeah,
and I think that's could be a problem for some countries, because I know that Red Bull, they want, of course, as many countries as possible. But it will be more and more difficult, those, let's call them the adventurers, they have no chance. The adventurers have no chance in that race anymore. They had before.
Yeah.
And the old guys, they told me that the one that won the first one, and then Alex Hofer that won the second and the third, they had a very huge equipment, 20 kilos, and they improvised. There were different times.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Very different times. And the course itself has really changed things as well. In this last race with, they almost doubled the amount of turn points. And that, I think, for the athletes really removes a lot of the excitement, because you can't make big moves. I mean, when you look at the replays and the track logs, everybody's playing follow the leader. You just can't really, when back in our day when we had the turn point in Bellinzona and then to the Matterhorn, there's a lot of different ways you can fly that almost 200K. You could take south, middle, north, and now you can't go that far off course line. The distances between turn points are really short.
Makes it less interesting in a certain way, right?
It certainly does. Yeah. Well, so then let's switch to the EigerTour, because is that something that kind of sounds like almost filled the gap for you, because that's a massive undertaking as well. I think will this be the 4th?
Yeah, the 4th edition. Yeah.
And such an awesome race. It just looks so cool. So for those who aren't familiar, just explain briefly what it is and what was kind of the catalyst to get that going.
So actually the idea arose that we had a race in Switzerland. It's called Verkofly. And in Switzerland, we have 120 mountain huts that belong to our Alpine club. They're up behind the mountains, and they have everything: shelter, food, water, beds, whatever you need. So I was at this race in Switzerland, southern Switzerland. It was very nice, but I felt, very complicated rules. And then I was at the X-Alps, and then I thought, okay, let's synthesize those 2 races, which is the Verkofly and the X-Alps. And then I kind of created the EigerTour. I just thought that would be the race I would like to do. But of course, I cannot, as an organizer, I cannot participate. I know it is very demanding, and I don't know if you've heard Kriegel saying it's harder than the X-Alps.
Oh no, I haven't. I didn't know
That's what
that.
he stated in Swiss newspaper.
Wow, is that because you don't have a supporter and it's just a lot of vertical? Because I mean, I know you cover some pretty amazing country.
Yeah, some people have done 5,700 meters a day vertical, and and then you have the top landing, and then we are in the most thermal active month in the year, and top landing, and that it's very demanding. Sometimes that's also why I split, and for the pros I give them medium to difficult huts, and for the challenge race I give them what I think easy huts. But this year I have to take out some more because we always had some accidents while top landing. So the idea was exactly that. You don't need to have this logistics that you need in the X-Alps, so you can come alone, right? You take your plane, pack your stuff. You don't need to rent a car and come with 2 or 3 guys to Switzerland, so you don't need a big budget. And then you don't need to think a lot. And I also want to make sure that athletes, they eat sufficiently and they're, let's say, more or less safe, because everywhere where they have to land, there are people. There's a hut. And, if you're hungry and you're in the middle of the prairie, then you probably go on hungry because you say, I can't make a big detour to the next big McDonald's. But if you land at a hut and you're hungry, you lose 3 minutes and you buy some stuff and eat and go on. So that's,
I was going to say, so you don't have to carry much water and food because you're having breakfast and dinner every day at a hut.
If you want, of course, the very competitive people, sometimes they don't even want to spend the 3 minutes to eat the cake at a hut. And then the huts, they're very enthusiastic. They like us to pass by, and they bring you food and drinks, and they follow online the race. So that was actually my idea, to make it simple and only 4 days. And there's also Kriegel, he agrees that 4 days, he says it's the perfect length of a race. He thinks
4 days, 3 nights.
Yeah.
And don't you tell me if I've got this wrong, but I've watched all the videos and stuff, but you announce the course the morning of, right? You have a meeting. Everybody's already got what would be the prep? What do people say if you're coming from the States and you want to come do the Eiger and you're real limited on time? What do you need to do in advance?
Okay, I have so many huts that I can't tell you to visit all the huts because it's like 50 huts. If you have time, you can cover 5 or 6 in a day. Then you can do all the huts, of course. And that.
But I mean, could you just show up the day before the race starts and download the maps, or is that not enough preparation? Okay, that's enough.
No, you can do that. It's not a problem.
Okay.
Of course, it can be an advantage to know it. But last year, Kriegel and Paddle and Sepp, for knowing it, they lost like 2 hours because they thought like there's a big mountain ridge that is called Wiesenkette, and they thought that the west side never works. Kriegel says it never works, and he lives there. So he made a detour, and then all the guys in the back, the pack, they were like 3 hours behind, and in the evening everybody was together again.
Whoa, very
cool. So that was the proof that sometimes knowing it's not always an advantage.
Yeah, and I mean we see that in World Cups all the time, isn't it? I mean, it's very rarely the local hero that wins the comp because you get kind of set in your ways, don't you? Oh, that's great, cool.
On the other hand, what I like, if you know the area, then you could fly without the GPS. And that's also something just for me, because I hate instruments. I love free flight. Free flight is going where I want. And I thought, okay, if somebody really hates instruments and he knows the huts, he can do it without. He just needs a cell phone.
So you have the 2 categories. The lower category, what would you recommend? How many who does that suit? And how much experience? Does it suit somebody who's never done a hike and fly race, or is that a little too aggressive?
So now I've learned with the 3 editions. Now in 2021, I will have 4 categories. 4. Oh. Which of them I have 2 that are actually a race, which is for the professionals. That you have to have done the X-Alps, you have to be mountain guide or paragliding teacher. That's for the pros. And then I have the challenge, which also requires a lot of experience, hike and fly race experience. And this year I will ask the guys to show me a video of a very difficult landing. And I also, some people I don't accept. So you have to be selected by me.
So that's still very high caliber. The challenge race is high caliber race. Okay. Yeah.
And then I said, okay, I felt the interest of people like this. I've never done a race. Then I made the academy, EigerTour Academy. So last year was the first time we did it. We had 10 participants, and we saw that the field was still too wide, because some they already pushed and some they could hardly take off in a snow field. So now this year we split the category to 2 different categories still. So we have one for somebody who has no idea. And then I have the one that somebody that wants to become a challenge pilot.
So the 2 lowest categories they're not a race. It's an experience.
They're actually a tourist experience.
Yeah, that's great. So you don't have the pressure of trying to get anywhere. You just go at your own pace, learn. Fantastic.
Everybody sleeps in the same hut. And then you have professional teachers. You have a briefing, you have a debriefing in the evening. So it's a learning experience.
Fantastic. That sounds so great. So I'm going to ask you to imagine something that's very hard for a Swiss to imagine, but we've been trying to get something like you're doing off the ground here in the States. The problem is with the exception of Colorado, we don't have a hut system anywhere. That doesn't exist. Colorado a little bit, but then, the Colorado there's such high mountains and there's so much wind. It's just, there's no way to pick a time of the year that would actually go. So we're trying to figure out how to do something kind of similar, but without huts. What would be your suggestion? Could you just have, tents set up at the top of a mountain where you have, some food and stuff, or how would you approach something like that?
I would probably look for lower places. I mean, I'm sure you guys have some cabins and some lodges and nothing.
Not I mean, cabins, there's Forest Service cabins and that kind of thing that are but they're so far apart. We don't have any kind of like a network that where you could stay in a little kind of cereal bowl area that this is kind of protected, because the problem we have is, of course, wind. There's a hard time, like you're pretty much, you're always committed to these dates in July, and you're going to get a couple days. You've had bad weather, as we always do in the X-Alps, but you're going to get a couple days, and even in the bad weather, you're going to be able to fly. We get a lot of time we just can't fly, so we have to make. At all, it just is not. Days like that, so we have to make it something that you could do on foot, and yet hopefully you'll get some flying. But it's hard to figure out how to support, because we'd really like to do it unsupported. You could do it with a support team, but then it adds costs and personnel, and it's very hard. It makes access for a lot of people much tougher. The beautiful thing about the Eiger is you can just show up with your kit and do it.
Yeah, you can just pack your glider and some stuff and fly over and compete. Yeah, that's it's like plug and play. How could you do that? Maybe with tents.
Yeah, maybe you just have to set up like almost like an Ironman type of thing. You just set up, refueling zones or something.
And then you could also say everybody sleeps at the certain tent, and then you just count the time to get there, and then people will stay at the same place.
You bring them there, and you bring them back to where they. Okay, yeah.
Today we're gonna have 3 turn points, and the third one will be our sleeping place. And the Kriegel arrives at 1 p.m. and some guys arrive at 8 p.m. But everybody's there. And the next day you make the next step.
You do a mass start every day. That'd be kind of neat too,
Yeah,
because then everybody's together and having fun, and
exactly. We do that. We just created the Swiss Championships of hike and fly last year. No, the year before, and we're doing the same type of thing. You know, we do every day one thing. Every night, all the pilots are together, and at the end of the 3 days, you count the points.
Ah, cool. Okay. Yeah, that just sounds so fun. Let's get back to your own kind of personal journey. When I didn't even know this, but my first World Cup, you were here. You were in Sun Valley back in 2012. I know you used to fly a lot of comps. Are you still doing a lot of competing?
No, I just I do Swiss comps because now, of course, you know, I have little time, and then I have so many hike and fly stuff going on. So last 2 years I just did the Swiss Championships.
Okay.
For normal comps.
So you're doing the Swiss Cup?
Yeah, the Swiss Cup. I didn't go too many. You know, I think I went to 2 last year, and last year, 2 comps. One was Swiss Cup, and one was the Swiss Championships, which was a 5-day competition.
How much time does the EigerTour take to run? What's involved in that kind of an effort? Is that like year round, or is it something that takes up a ton of your time all year, or can you kind of throw it together?
Okay, maybe, I don't know. It's all year round, because right now I'm programming my new web shop, and then you have this and that. We're actually developing a hike and fly app, so we don't need those Fly Masters things anymore.
Yeah, right.
And you only have one device in the future, which will be your cell phone.
Great.
And which will also make a tracking, and then you just need the cell phone and an external battery. So your question, how much time it takes? Sometimes it takes nights and nights and nights, and sometimes maybe 3 weeks I do nothing. Like in November, you know, can happen.
And is this just a project, and we don't share anything you don't want to, but is this just a project that's really kind of from the heart, or is there a financial side of it too that makes it worthwhile, or is it just something you're doing because you like it, or is that a joke?
I'm an entrepreneur, Gavin. So It came from the heart, and it's been 3 years now, and I'm still looking how to make it profitable. You know, I don't want to get rich, but at least I want to have my hours paid.
Sure.
And I also want to gather some money, because I have some other races in my head that I will do further on. So I have to be able to develop. Ideally, I would have like 3 races a year, and I could have a staff that becomes more and more professional in organizing, and also get probably stronger sponsors, because I don't have a lot of sponsors. I don't invest a lot of time to look for sponsors. Yeah. So let's say if I don't count my hours, it's been a 0 round so far, but it has not paid my hours. And it should become probably a little bit more better with the future. I just had some students do a bachelor thesis about making EigerTour profitable, and they found out some very interesting things. Because I think it can't be that I sponsor. You know, I want I want my hours paid ideally.
Yeah,
but it's also very nice. You know, as an entrepreneur, I shouldn't do it, and you know why? Because of the risk. The risk exists that something bad happens. I know it. People know it that come, and I hope it will never be the case. But I have to be conscious that something bad can happen. You know?
Yeah, and I mean it's interesting that even you say something about that in Switzerland. You know, that's always the huge fear here. Is we are a very lawsuit happy culture here in the States, and you can be sued for anything. And it's just, that's always, every year when we go, let's do this, or let's have a fly-in, or let's have a little comp, it's always like, yeah, man, you can't open yourself up to that kind of lawsuit. And you're much more protected in Switzerland than we are from that, but still, I guess it could happen.
We have that, the mountain people have that mentality. They say in the mountain, everyone is on his own.
Yeah.
Everyone takes his own decisions. Yeah, of course, I checked it with my lawyer, and he says he says worst case scenario for me would be to be judged, but how do you say, like conditionally.
Yeah.
So I would still live at home and I would have something around my leg to control where I am. But I said as long as I can see my kids, I can live with that. But I can't go to jail. That would be a no-go. If he told me in the worst case he would be in jail, I say I have to stop it right away.
Yeah, boy. Well, I
So
hope you're able to navigate that. Yeah, that's always kind of a scary side of what we're doing for sure. And
and
accidents are almost
it's funny because people, they love it. They love the race. Last year I had to cut because there were too many
I
inscriptions.
saw that. Yeah.
That's also a reason why I do it, because I see the happy people.
It looks like so much fun. I mean, the videos, for those of you who haven't watched them, get online and just YouTube it, or go to the website, EigerTour rocks. But the videos that they're being put up, and I mean, that was where I first discovered this whole speed bar, uphill, downhill, downwind landing.
That was invented by Kriegel because he knew that to win that race, it was his key to be even faster.
I mean, that's next level. I had never even thought about that. I mean, that's not what you do. You land into the wind, and I mean, it's an advanced move. It's tough. I've been working on it a lot this year because it's very inspiring watching him, land on waterfalls and stuff. But well, hats off to you for making that work. It's been fantastic. And I want to also ask you about, I follow you on Instagram and the X-Alps Academy and stuff. And it sounds like, you've taken a real position there. You obviously do a lot of ski touring and spend a lot of time outdoors, but I've always been so jealous of this, that you can go to get prepared for a race. I mean, I wish I had something like that here where I could go and learn. You talked a little bit at the top of the show about what that looks like from the physical standpoint. You're trying to make these athletes durable and resilient and, get them into weight training and that kind of thing. But what else are you learning? Is it a lot of process stuff? Are you teaching people how to pack their wing? What if I just showed up tomorrow at the X-Alps Academy, what am I going to learn?
So first I have to clarify that, I had the coach position with Kriegel at the beginning, and I did the beginning, but last year I handed over to a guy, Ben Hussein. But I'm still there, but I haven't this position right now. What would you learn? You would learn, for example, how to be faster in a ski mountaineering paragliding race. Have you ever done that?
No.
So you have the racing skis, you run up, you leave them open, you don't even take off the first, you fly with them like this down, you land, pack your wing, you probably don't even take off your harness, you run up the next hill, you take off again, and you do it this 3 times. Like, this would be something that you could learn that you've probably never done.
Yeah. I always rip my skins when I do that, but I love it. That'll be my next training. That sounds great.
Yeah. And then, of course, sometimes we do, we just go together on a hike and fly with no specific task. Or we go and we make a little task with 4 turn points. And then we have, we have, how you call this, pulse training. Mm-hmm. Running up the Harder Mountain, which is just next to Interlaken. And then, but there's also the mental part. We have this psychologue that Thomas Deria, you know him. He was a supporter of Kriegel. He's again. So he helps us as well, to work on the mental part. And then I think a lot is also just the spirit of all those people around, and you hike up and you talk about best practice, about this and that. Okay, let's try it. I can show you this and that, a lot of things that are informally also learned.
What's like one thing that you could pull out of everything that you've seen and at the X-Alps Academy in the years since your 2015 race, when you look back, what one thing is like, God, I wish I had known that or had practiced that, what's one thing that would have really made a difference in your own race?
To me, actually nothing, because I was the prototype of the X-Alps Academy. I asked Trigel, can we train together? And he said, yeah, of course. So, I always say it's like if you learn to play tennis with Roger Federer, I'm sure you will learn very quickly. And I got so many hints from him that otherwise I would have learned on my own. So I was actually like the first X-Alps baby,
Huh. Can you share any of the hints? Like, I have an example, because I know Yael is, because she's in Verbier, and she's, it's hard for her to come over and join the academy. So I asked her this, and I know she's working with Thomas, as I am, which has been really great.
Cool.
Yeah. What are you passing on to her in terms of just being ready?
Okay, what I pass on to her is that I tell her that her flying skills are way enough.
Yeah.
She doesn't have to be the fittest. She has to be durable. That's the only thing. And for that, she needs also to gain some weight. She's trying to. She's really struggling to gain weight, because I'm sure that if you're very, very thin, you need a little fat to burn during that long race.
Yeah.
And then I think that's about it. And then also she asks me to maybe come, the difficult flying decisions, to also tell her my opinion. Would I still fly? Would I not fly? Because she's seen that with me, that it can get very quickly very dangerous depending on the winds and stuff. So that's what she wants from me, a very, very honest opinion once we're in the race.
Yeah. Michael, before I've got a couple other questions for you, and then I'm going to fire some kind of rapid fire questions at you that we put up a survey about a month and a half ago. By the time this goes live, it'll be longer than that, but I've got a lot of really cool questions that just came from the audience. So I'll fire some of those at you. But before we do, I just got to meet your little daughter there while we took a break, and you mentioned your wife was pregnant, like 5 months pregnant or so, in the 2015 race. Yeah. How has kids changed your relationship with risk and flying? And, you've been at this game a long time, a lot of years of World Cups, and then X-Alps. And then now I see you're still getting after doing fun things with a wing. As I've had my own kind of interesting journey with that. My Fallon's 3 years old now. Maddie was very pregnant in the 2017 race. I was kept waiting for the call to come in to have to race home, during the race itself. But I'm just wondering how and if it has, how has it changed your relationship with flying and risk?
I think with flying, what's changed even more, my risk behavior was 2 years ago when I lost my friend in front of me in an avalanche. I think that was, I couldn't save him, and he died. And that was like the moment where I thought, oh man, I could be standing next to this grave. I could be in the grave next to his. And then I thought, my life was actually very good. I have no complaints, but I want to see my kids grow up. That was like the strongest reason to be alive right now. And so then I said, in the future, I will always, before I do something risky, I will always think about the worst case. And if I think worst case is death, then I don't do it. If worst case is breaking a leg, I can live with that. And that's been my guideline since then. So my ski mountaineering is normally under 30 degrees, no avalanche risk. I miss some nice powder, but that's the price I pay. And also flying, but flying, except that X-Alps, I've never really had problems, so I don't feel flying I'm in a big danger. It hasn't changed a lot of my flying behavior. I've always been, I know that my level is a little below that some pros we have in Switzerland. And let's give you an example. During the Swiss champs, they will go full speed with an ENSO 3, 20 meters to a rock, and I will go half speed, or I will fly it further around because I know that my green zone is not as high as theirs. But that's been even before having kids. That I think that's always been there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that was a good answer. I'll get into, so these you can answer long or short, however you want, but there's just kind of some fun ones.
Okay.
What skill or something that you learned from life or any other sport has helped you become a better pilot?
That you should never give up. Sometimes you think I will not find a thermal, it's over, but it's normally not over. I always remember in Brazil, that was the most impressive. I was in Brazil on a comp, and then I was like, I don't know, 15, 20 meters above ground. And I got this thermal, and it got up again. And once also in Brazil, we were sticking to a rock. It was raining during 1 hour, and we could just keep the height above the rock. And then it cleared up again, and we made goal. That was crazy,
Yeah.
But that's something that I always try to learn in life from paragliding, but also keep it in mind, because our mind sometimes, makes this black and white decisions. It says, "Oh, it's raining, it's over. You can go and land." But no, it's not.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things that keeps drawing me back to the X-Alps in a sense, is that you're flying, in the last race we had the day going up the Rhine. There was no sun. It wasn't windy. It was kind of a cool day, but it was never a day you would wake up and go, I'm going to go flying today. You would never go flying because you never did anything more than just a sledder. And I don't know if I've had that much fun paragliding in a long time. It was great. I mean, those were the coolest sledders ever. You're sledding over, morning glory clouds in the morning and fog and in and out of little wispies, and and it was mellow and there was no wind and there was no thermals, and it was just, you're just having a day in the mountains. But, usually you'd go do something else on those kind of days,
That's why I like competitions. I still like to do them. It's not that much for winning, but for pushing myself into those exactly conditions as you mentioned them. You do things that you will never do, and you will experience amazing things during competitions. And also sometimes you will lack a little bit the time to really enjoy it, because you have to always go forward. That's, let's say, the negative side. But the positive is definitely that you go into conditions that you would never, if it wasn't for a comp.
Sure. Okay. If you get back to a time before you started flying, would you make a different decision?
Yeah, probably, yes. I think there's no other sport that I know that is that much teaching about life than paragliding. Even for economy, also, for my company, I learn a lot of things. Yeah. One thing is also the focus. That's what I learned from our league boss. He said, if you're high, you can think about strategy. If you're low, don't look at the others. Just think, where can I get up? And then again, you can think about strategy. And that's what he calls the focus. If you're low, thermal. If you're high, where to go? Where are the others? What can I do? And in business, it's exactly the same.
That's great. I like that. What was the best tip you've gotten in all these years that influenced your flying the most? Something Kriegel taught you, or a mentor, or somebody, or even just something you saw in a comp?
I mean, probably at the beginning, it was probably the theory of the fastest flight. I'm an engineer, so I even programmed. I had my how you call it, polar of my wing.
Yeah.
And then I programmed headwind, tailwind, expected lift and expected sink. So that's the McCready theory. And then I I had a table on my cockpit that I could read how fast I would fly. And it's amazing that normally you have to fly a lot faster than you would think to use the McCready theory.
You and I had this conversation that I've brought up over and over again. I don't know if you listen to this show, but I've brought you up a lot. We had this great conversation coming off the Camp and Vaughn about your business, and you're an engineer. And I don't know if you remember this, but I was commenting on, God, there's so many engineers in this sport. And you gave me a great answer that I'm fuzzy on now. Why is it that engineers are so attracted to flying?
Maybe I'm an engineer because I'm attracted to flying, you know?
I think
it's
the other way around.
Yeah, it's really true. That I think at that moment in the X-Alps, I told you that like probably 30 or 40% of all the guys in the top 10 in Switzerland have always been mechanical engineers.
Yeah.
But okay, let's call it this way. You know, aerodynamics is a field of mechanical engineering. Method, you know, the weather. It's also fluid dynamics. So I think we have already this kind of basis to understand better what's going on. Let's say the non-engineer pilot, he can make it up with experience, but we already have like a little package that we can just unpack to understand things. You know, like the McCready theory, to understand that what's, you know, the fastest way of flying. If you ask an average pilot, he will not really get what does it mean. I think that's, and especially because I liked flying, I specialized in fluid dynamics, you know, so it was all about fluid and flows and stuff. And I think that helped. That really helps.
Is that super translatable though? I mean, understanding fluid dynamics, you know, from a theoretical standpoint and from algorithms and math, does it just cross over into understanding flow in the invisible?
Yeah, I think it does. It really does. You know, to understand what's a Reynolds number, and to know that on your wingtip you have a different one than in the middle of your wing, and to know what is the induced drag, and why the birds are flying, you know, in a V shape. I mean, okay, normal people probably know that. Why do, you know, when birds travel, they use the V shape, or they fly very low, like the albatross. You've seen them on the sea with your boat, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
So that's all. When you see them, then if you're a mechanical engineer, you know exactly why they're flying so low, because they use the, you know, the floor effect, and you know exactly why the birds, they use this V shape, flying one behind the other, because they annihilate one of their rotors, and they have less drag, and that's all the things that certainly help.
What should beginners avoid?
Paragliding beginners?
Yeah. People just getting into the sport. What should they be most aware of?
I always tell people paragliding is not a dangerous sport if you practice it only in a good weather. So if you want to push into demanding weather, you need a lot more of experience. And something that I also think that the beginners don't do enough is ground handling. It's not that sexy, you know, to stand there for hours and control your wing. But I tell people, when it's really windy, go out in the field, and then after a moment, go behind a tree to feel the lee side and try to keep your wing up. And if you do this for hours and hours, you will be a much better pilot than if you do 20 more flights in a nice weather. That's my tip probably for beginners.
That's great. Okay, last one. What was or still is the hardest or most demanding thing that you needed to or still need to learn?
Yeah, let's say in paragliding, I would like to control my wing better in very extreme situations. So, but I would be very scared to be a test pilot. Just go full gas and collapse. But that would be good for me.
Mm.
I'm sure. You can see those pilots. You will see them again in summer that are test pilots. Their green flying zone is so much higher than mine
Yeah.
because they do this every day.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw Aaron Durgatti when I was training with him. I think that was the 2015 race, and take off on a day where it was very much an X-Alps day, but it was not a recreational day. And we were just out training. And I just thought, man, there's no plus side to this. Why even try? I mean, it was nasty, really strong fern and awful. And, but I think it's because he has that test pilot mentality. And just, I was more than happy walking down, and he was like, nah, this is fine.
Yeah. Just go full gas and then make it collapse. That's against my intuition because I always want to keep it open.
Sure.
And I think they have test pilots. They have a very, very good experience.
Yeah, they certainly do. Michael, what a pleasure. I really, really enjoyed that. Thank you for your time. It's good to see you.
Thank you, Gavin. Yeah, it was very nice.
While. Yeah, that was
I
great.
see you're in good shape and happy. That's nice.
Yeah, I hope we get to have the race, but I kind of figure our approach since September has been, worst case scenario is I spend the winter getting fit. So there's worse things in life. So I hope we get to come over and have this race, but we'll see. But no, I'm very thankful to be able to spend so much time on training. It's keeping me sane right now.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, for me, it's been not such a bad year.
No,
I've always been outside, and it's been great. Will you come to the EigerTour after X-Alps?
We are coming for sure. Whether I race or not is, it's so tight because we won't get done until the 1st, and it kicks off the 7th? Is it the 7th or even earlier?
Of June?
No, your race.
Of July, yeah.
Yeah, and so Ben and Revis, two of my supporters, are both planning on doing it, and if you've got the space to throw me in and my feet are okay, usually my feet are pretty hammered, man, after the end of this race. So if my feet are okay, because I really wanted to do the last one, and but I couldn't walk well enough, so I watched from afar. But I think the timing is going to be a little too tight for me. I'm an old guy, buddy. I take some time to recover, but I will for sure be sitting in Interlaken and watch it go on and have some beers with you, and maybe I can help out with logistics or something else if I can't actually get in the race.
We can do some flights still.
Yeah, that'd be great. I just don't know if I'm going to be capable of running up mountains that fast, but we'll see.
Then you would take the cable car.
Maybe it'll be like 2013 where we just fly the whole damn course and it'll be nice weather, but I haven't had that experience yet.
But otherwise you can be the special guest for our academy and you go with them.
Great. Love to. Yeah, that sounds fun. That'd be fantastic.
If you
I will be involved in some way. We have the van rented for the whole time, and like I said, Ben and Revis are doing it, so we'll be there. And I can't wait to see you in person. Okay. But thanks, bud. That was a blast, and it's so good to see you. And congrats on the little ones, and congrats on.
That's easy to make, but hard to educate. We will see. Okay, Gavin, it was a big pleasure to see you, and hope to see you in some month in Switzerland.
If you find the Cloud-Based Mayhem valuable, you can support it in a lot of different ways. You can give us a rating on iTunes or Stitcher, or however you get your podcast. That goes a long ways and helps spread the word. You can blog about it on your own website or share it on social media. You can talk about it on the way up to launch with your pilot friends. I know a lot of interesting conversations have happened that way. And of course, you can support us financially. This show does take a lot of time, a lot of editing, a lot of storage and music and all kinds of behind the scenes cost. So if you can support us financially, all we've ever asked for is $1 a show. And you can do that through a one-time donation through PayPal, or you can set up a subscription service that charges you for each show that comes out. We put a new show out every 2 weeks, so For example, if you did $1 a show and every 2 weeks, it'd be about $25 a year. So way cheaper than a magazine subscription, and it makes all of this possible. I do not want to fund this show with advertising or sponsors. We get asked about that pretty frequently, but for a whole bunch of different reasons, which I've said many times on the show, I don't want to do that. I don't like having that stuff at the front of the show. And I also want you to know that these are authentic conversations with real people, and these are just our opinions, but our opinions are not being skewed by sponsors or advertising dollars. I think that's a pretty toxic business model. So I hope you dig that. You can support us. If you go to cloudbasedmayhem.com, you can find the places to support. You can do it through patreon.com/cloudbasedmayhem. If you want a recurring subscription, you can also do that directly through the website. We've tried to make it really easy, and that will give you access to all the bonus material, little video casts that we do, and extra little nuggets that we find in conversations that don't make it into the main show, but we feel like you should hear. We don't put any of that behind a paywall. If you can't afford to support us, then just let me know and I'll set you up with an account. Of course, that'll be lifetime, and hopefully you'll be in a position someday to be able to support us. But you'll find all that on the website. All of you who have supported us or even joined our newsletter or bought Cloud-Based Mayhem merchandise, t-shirts or hats or anything, you should be all set up. You should have an account, and you should be able to access all that bonus material now. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate your support, and we'll see you on the next show. Thank you.